everyone, how are you feeling today? It's Eros71 here, and today I'm coming at you with my vampire deck, which is a deck that it's not really hard to build. It's a little bit annoying, the ratios, because if you want to stay in like 44 cards, so to speak, and vampires don't really like to run above 40 to be consistent. If you want to do that, then it's a little bit hard, but if you know the basics of vampires, then they're okay. As well as, like, if I would say things, this deck is a little bit more easier to a little bit more harder to master, but a lot more easier to build than the pure zombie horde one, at least for me. Also, for everybody who like think like, oh yeah, I'm going to call this vampires and I only run like 4 to 5 cards of vampires. No. I run a lot more vampires. Yes, I seen that video, if you're asking me, of a guy that pretty much one of the bigger Yu-Gi tubers, I believe, that decided to call his deck vampires, but he's only running like 4 or 5 vampires, and he called that vampires. Like, it's not vampires. It's zombies with an engine of vampires. I don't like the shit on the guy. I think he's doing a lot of good job, but it's one of those things that like really bother me, that like people call a thing a vampire deck or, you know, predator plant deck, and they run almost nothing from the archetype except for maybe 4 cards, and the rest is just a bunch of different engines. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started with this deck profile. And this is, like I said, trying to stay vampire-y kind of a build. There's still a few cards I'm not 100% sure about them, because, you know, but I'm going to explain why I am not sure about them, and so to speak. So starting things off, 2 Vampire Scarlet Scourge, and 2 Gobbies of Fjordline. These are your 2 big new, so to speak, vampires, and I don't really think I need to explain what Fjordline does, because Fjordline is being run in a lot of zombie decks today, by the fact that she's giving you the ability to offer protection of better honest. It's maybe taking life points, but it's a better honest than honest, because it's giving you also a baddie on the field, and you can choose any number of life points to sacrifice in order to give her up to 3,000 attack and defense or any other zombie monster, which is really cool. Vampire Scarlet Scourge is really nice because you pay 1,000, you will revive a vampire except himself, and that's really nice. And they both have the effect on when they destroy a monster by battle. So that's why her effect is not that bad, because you can make her 3,600. They can pretty much take the monsters that they destroyed by battle and revive it to your side of the field. So that's really nice. Next up, for the 2 Searchers, 2 Retainers, and 2 Familiars. I wanted to maximize on those, but then I realized, again, zombies specifically don't have a hard time to get into their zombie monsters, and when you see one of them, you're going to be in a good position to see the other. So don't worry about that. Like, even if you see Retainer, you can just pretty much use Vampire Desire to dump the Familiar, and then use the Familiar effect, and you know how that will go. So just see, when you see one, you see the other, and that's why I felt like you don't really need more than 2 of each. Next up, Vampire Grace and Vampire Shadow Vampire for your last 2 vampires. I felt like I need 2 additional names for vampires. Vampire Shadow Vampire is probably the worst one out of the 2, and I might actually cut him down completely just for space sake, because he's nice when you normal summon, and then you can get like your one of your level 1s, or like your Searchers and or your Scarlet Scourge. But generally, I don't really use like normal summon him like that much, so that's why 1 is okay. But like, I don't know, it's one of those cards that like I'm not 100% sure about. Grace is really good because you have a lot of monsters that from the extra deck, they're considered as zombies when they're special summoned with the effect of Zombie World. So you can have a lot more easier time to special summon her and get another level 6 on the board that you can use either for Xyz, Synchros, and or Link Away, which is really nice, and that's why I run her, and I think she became a lot better with the new vampire support that came out in, so to speak, Dark Saviors. Next up, for the generic zombie stuff, Free Solitaire, obvious, give me the ability to tribute himself and see any zombie tuner with 0 attack. 0 defense, my apologies, and my mistake, not apologies, whatever. Instead, and because of that, I only run 2 copies of Uni-Zombie, because unfortunately I don't have the space to run 3. And I also have another tuner with 0 defense, which I want to run, so, you know, it's felt to me like a good number. 3 Mizukis, which again is one of those cards I am considered to run to cut down to 2, even though it's amazing, but like, again, I just don't have the space. That's the problem with vampires, they have a little bit of a problem in space. But, you know, if you have, guys, in the comments down below ways to make this deck better, again, like I said in Zombie Horde deck profile, if you have any comments, and I'm going to say it all the time, just let me know in the comments down below in a nice and polite manner, and I might consider this, because it could be a good thing that I'm missing. But like I said, 3 Mizukis and 2 Gozuki, which in this particular deck, Gozuki is ridiculously good. Like, the ability to special summon a level 5 or higher zombie from your hand is ridiculously good, or just have the ability to summon your retainer or your familiar is really nice. And that pretty much does it for these, so to speak. And then I also run 1 copy of Zombie Master, a card that I'm considering bumping up to 2, because have the ability to just special summon zombies level 4 or lower all the time is really nice, and you can revive him. Doom King Bold Roach, because I have the ability and I don't really need more than 1. It's just really nice as a one-off. You see more than 1 is a little bit of a problem, because you cannot do anything with it, unlike the other vampire cards. And then 1 copy of Glow-a-Bloom to pretty much run off the monsters, and this is the other tuner that I can use, and most of the time I like to use them at the end of combo. And sometimes even if you're seeing your hand is not the worst thing. And like, it's one of those cards that, like, it's really good, but I'm not sure if I want to run it at more than 1. So it's kind of a weird card. Like I said, it's just a really good one, but I'm not 100% sure about that one yet. And it searched for you half of your, like, I wouldn't say half of your deck, but 7 targets in the deck. So that's really nice. That does it for the monsters. Now we'll move on to the spells. First off, 3 copies of Vampire Domain. I think this card is a max-off, because you want to see this card because it's also giving you life points. Even if you have multiples of them, like if you attack for 3,000 life points, your opponent, like you attack them for 3,000, and you have 3 of these, you gaining 9,000, which is absolutely ridiculous. The other reason, because you need the additional normal summon sometimes, and that's really good. And then you also pretty much you run 2 copies of Vampire Desire, because it's searchable. 2 desires are really nice, and it's also dumping to you with the particular vampire that you want in the grave. You can also use its other effect to revive, but I normally don't use that. You mostly want to use the effect to dump to the grave, which is really important. And that pretty much does it for that. Then we'll move on to the zombie world itself, which unfortunately, because, you know, I don't have space, only 2 copies of Zombie World and 2 copies of Terraforming. I'm not 100% sure if I even want to run Zombie World. I might, again, cut the Terraforming to 1, because Zombie World is nice, but it just doesn't really do a whole lot of things in this deck. I mean, it does have, in theory, really good applications when you're going into Sucker going second, and you also have Domain, and then you can just tribute your opponent monsters to your vampires and break their stuff, and break their entire board. But... and of course, like I said, it just, what I said, a Glow-a-Bloom effect, but it just feels to me like Zombie World is like, it's one of those cards that, like, it's one of those cards that I am consider cutting down completely, and then I will have like a huge number of space to do whatever I want. But for the time being, because I wanted to feel like, you know, Zombie World kind of a deck, I kind of run this lineup, because it's an okay lineup in my opinion. It's still working quite wonders, but I'm like, I'm not 100% sure if I like it, but on the other hand, it's really help again, because it's making all of the monster zombies. It's like, it's one of those cards that, like, I really want to run, but I don't. That's why I have a little bit of a hard time with the ratios of this deck. I really think it was easy to build, but the ratios were a little bit more of difficult because of that regard. But moving on for the one-offs, 1 copy of Card Destruction, usual thing, you can just send your entire hand and draw new, and zombies like to be in the graveyard, so it's really good. Reasoning, your monsters have different levels, special summon them, it's simple as that. Foolish Burial, get the monster they want in the graveyard. 1/1, a Familiar and or Glow Up Bloom, depending on the situation. Monster Reborn, Revival, Soul Charge, Revival. And that does it for the spells. And for the traps, I run one of each of the traps because they're searchable and you can see them in your hands. Now, the traps that I'm, again, going to cut down because I just don't have space, and like I said, the deck is still in, like, kind of testing. I might actually going to cut down Vampire Awakening, because Awakening doesn't really do a whole lot compared to Domination, which is the traps that I want to search, and I want to probably bump this up to 2 and cut this one. We'll see about that, and probably after Savage Strike, I'm going to have, like, an update to some of my zombies, because we're going to get additional Shiranui support, so we're going to see about that. But for the time being, this is the lineup that I decide to run with. And that pretty much does it for the main deck. Now we'll move on to the extra deck. So first off, for the extra deck, Xyz monsters, 1 copy of Sheridan and 1 copy of Braun. Braun is, again, like, there are a lot of cards here that I run for the time being for the gimmick, just to, like, enjoy the vampires for themselves, but in the future I'm probably going to cut down. Braun is not that bad, but it's also not that good either, so it's one of those cards that, like, I don't know, I'm probably going to cut down. Sheridan is actually really good, and it's giving you the ability to work going second. And then I also run 1 copy of Vampiric Dragon, because it's a vampire in the name, as well as a really nice rank 6 to go when you're going first, to give you the ability to just pretty much turn a monster face down. And unfortunately, it's only extra deck monsters, so if you're playing against extra links, it's not that good. But if you're playing against something else that, like, you know, use, for example, like an Xyz monster, you can just turn it face down. I just don't think there's any other good rank 6 that you can run. So, yeah, this is the lineup that I decided to go with. Then for the Synchros, Stardust Charge Warrior for the draws. Necro Dragon, because it's a good level 7 for this deck, and then Shogun Saga, because it's, again, it's a good level 8 for this deck, because it just, you can make this card so big in this deck specifically. Like, your vampires, mostly, like, the big ones are around 2,000 and such, so you can make your vampires into, you can make him into, like, a 5,200 and stuff. So that's really cool. And then also Omega, because Omega. And that pretty much does it for the Synchros as well. And then for the links, Linkaribo, because you can run it a lot more easier in this deck, really good. Lanforlafuncnicus, or whatever his name is, supposed to be Summon Sorceress, but I don't have Summon Sorceress for the time being, I'm proxying. Vampire Sucker, really amazing card in this deck specifically, consider to bumping it up to 3 in this deck, because it's so good, but I don't know, 2 kind of doing wonders right now. And then, of course, Phoenix, Cerberus, and Nigirsu, which is supposed to be a unicorn, but like I said, I don't have a unicorn. And then a Borlo Dragon to round off the Link monsters for this deck. And that's pretty much does it for the vampires. Like I said, again, this is one of those decks that, like, you know, it just, I'm still in playtesting and phases like that, so it's like, it's a little bit more weird to build. It's a little bit more easier for me to play and build than the Zombie Horde, but it still have its own problems. And I feel like I should change some stuff, but I want to hear what you guys think. It's a really fun deck to play, like playing vampires, because it's an archetype that, like, came from tier 10,000 to tier 4 in few months from, like, last year, like in February, I believe that was when the set, no, May. In May it came for us, in February it was for Japan, Dark Saviors, and then it's received another kind of an upgrade that kind of, like, put it in, like, a low tier 3, which is really, really nice. So that's pretty much it for the vampire deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you enjoy the content. And remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, guys. Stay safe. And next time, we're going to do Shiranuis. See you guys next time.